If you grew up in the 1970s, you remember a time before ingredient labels became novels, before every packet needed a warning, and before the government decided half the things in your pantry were probably going to kill you. Back then, food was simpler. Sometimes dangerously simpler. The supermarket shelves were full of products that would make today's food safety regulators absolutely lose their minds. Some of these foods disappeared quietly. Others were yanked off shelves so fast you would think they were radioactive. Looking back now, with what we know about food safety and health, a few of them probably should have been. But for those of us who ate them and somehow survived, there is something fascinating about remembering what was considered perfectly normal back then. Let us rediscover 10 foods Australians ate in the 1970s that are banned, restricted, or completely reformulated today. Number 10. Red food dye in everything. Walk into any corner shop in the 1970s and everything was aggressively, unnaturally red. Lollies, cordial, ice blocks. That particular shade of red did not exist in nature, but somehow ended up in half the things kids ate. The culprit was tartrazine and other artificial food dyes, particularly red too. It was in Fanta, Red Frogs, and cordial so concentrated you could probably strip paint with it. Every kid's birthday party looked like a crime scene. But here is what no one talks about. Parents just accepted this. Your child would come home from a party, absolutely wired, bouncing off walls, and everyone nodded like this was normal. Then the studies started coming out, links to hyperactivity and allergic reactions. By the 1980s, these dyes were either banned or required warning labels. For those who remember gulping down that lurid red cordial at every family gathering, there is a part of you that wonders how you survived. She'll be right. Number 9. Unpasteurized milk straight from the farm. If you lived anywhere near a dairy farm, you could get fresh milk straight from the cow. Raw. Unpasteurized. Still warm. People thought this was healthier. The cream would rise to the top, thick and yellow, and you would shake the bottle to mix it back in. It tasted different, richer, like actual milk. The trick was keeping it cold. You would drink it within a day or two. No one worried about bacteria or words like listeria. Then the food safety people got involved. Unpasteurized milk could carry tuberculosis, E. coli, salmonella. By the 1980s, selling it for human consumption became basically impossible. What made this special wasn't just the taste. It was the connection to where food came from. You knew the farmer. You knew the cow, probably. That's gone now. Number 8. Cyclamate sweeteners. Before Diet Coke, there was Cyclamate. It was an artificial sweetener used in low-calorie drinks and in Cottee's slimline cordial. Your mum probably had it in her tea if she was watching her weight. Cyclamate was cheap and sweet, about 30 times sweeter than sugar. Then 1969 happened. A study on rats suggested a link to bladder cancer. Governments panicked, and Australia banned it faster than you could say carcinogen. Here is the kicker. Later studies could not replicate those results. The rat dosage was absurdly high. But Cyclamate never came back. It remains banned to this day, even though it is legal in Canada and in Europe. People who drank slimline cordial remember the taste, slightly metallic, vaguely chemical, but somehow refreshing. DDT was the miracle pesticide of the mid-20th century. Australian farmers used it everywhere, on fruit, vegetables, crops. If it grew in the ground, it probably had DDT on it. People would rinse apples under the tap and call it a day. Children ate fruit straight from the tree. Then Rachel Carson published Silent Spring, and suddenly everyone knew. DDT accumulated in the food chain. Studies linked it to cancer and reproductive issues. Australia banned DDT for agriculture in 1987, but through the 1970s, it was everywhere. People who grew up eating backyard tomatoes in the 1970s probably consumed more DDT than they'd like to think about. But here we are, still kicking. Breakfast cereals in the 1970s were basically lollybags disguised as nutrition. Fruit Loops, Cocoa Pops. Every box was 50% sugar and had a toy buried inside, not a voucher. An actual plastic toy waiting to be excavated by sugar-crazed children who would pour half the box onto the table to find it. The toys were brilliant. Little cars, decoder rings, cheap plastic tat that would break within a week, but you did not care because it was yours. Now they are banned. Regulations tightened after children choked on small parts. Advertising high sugar cereals to children became restricted. But something was lost. The excitement of shaking the box and hearing that telltale rattle. That first bowl where you would accidentally bite into the plastic wrapper. If you remember Cocoa Pops with a bendy toy dolphin inside, you know exactly what has been lost. Every biscuit tin in the 1970s was full of Arnott's classics. Iced Vovos, Monte Carlos and Tim Tams were all made with partially hydrogenated vegetable oil, commonly called trans fats. That oil gave biscuits their crunch, and it kept cakes moist for weeks. Your nan had a tin of Scotch fingers that could survive a nuclear winter. Then science caught up, and trans fats were linked to heart disease, stroke and diabetes. Australia restricted them in 2010. Now, biscuits are made differently. They taste similar, but not quite the same. And the texture is different. What made those biscuits special was the ritual, the biscuit tin at your grandparents' house, and the way your mum dunked her milk arrowroot in tea. Still, many remember it fondly, though today it is better to avoid the added risk to heart health. In the 1970s, most canned foods came in cans with lead-soldered seams. The lead would leach into the food, especially acidic items like tomatoes. People ate canned food constantly. Canned spaghetti and canned peaches were common. SPC and IXL were in every pantry. No one knew about the lead because no one was checking. Australia phased out lead solder through the 1980s. People who grew up eating canned food in the 1970s absolutely consumed lead. The terrifying part is how normal it was. Every family had a cupboard full of canned goods. It was convenient, it was cheap, and it was slowly poisoning everyone, and no one had a clue. Number 3. Mechanically separated meat. If you ate a meat pie or a sausage roll in the 1970s, there is a decent chance you consumed mechanically separated meat. After the good cuts were removed, bones and leftover bits were pressure blasted to extract every scrap. The result was a pink slurry mixed into processed meat products. Every servo pie and every snag at the sausage sizzle had it, and it tasted fine. Then, mad cow disease emerged. Suddenly, eating spinal tissue seemed less appealing. Mechanically separated meat from cows and sheep was restricted. What made this special was the culture, the meat pie at the footy, and the absolute faith that whatever was in that pastry was fine because everyone was eating it. Before the big brands dominated, there were local soft drinks, Passioner, Cottee's Cooler. Almost all contained brominated vegetable oil, or BVO, to keep the flavouring suspended. The problem was that bromine is in the same chemical family as flame retardants. Studies showed it could build up in the body and cause neurological issues. The European Union banned it. Australia phased it out by the early 2000s. But through the 70s and 80s, it was in everything. You were basically drinking flame retardant, and no one mentioned it. For those who remember the specific taste of those old soft drinks, sweeter, more artificial, somehow more satisfying, there is a nostalgia that is hard to shake. Asbestos packaged foods. Yes, really. In the 1970s, some flour and baking products came in bags with asbestos fibres mixed in for strength and fire resistance. People brought those bags home and scooped flour straight into bowls or onto counters. When opened, the asbestos fibres could become airborne. At the time, asbestos was considered a miracle material, used in everything from building insulation to flour bags. Then the health effects became undeniable. Lung cancer, mesothelioma. By the 1990s, it was banned. This one is different. There is no nostalgia here, just the uncomfortable reality of how much we trusted without knowing. Looking back at what we ate in the 1970s, it's a miracle that any of us made it out alive. Lead, asbestos, trans fats, DDT, flame retardants. But we didn't know. Our parents didn't know. And in the absence of information, we just trusted. We trusted that food on shelves was safe. We trusted that someone, somewhere, was making sure we weren't being slowly poisoned. Sometimes that trust was misplaced. But it came from a simpler time, when ingredient lists were short and food felt less complicated. Now we know better. We have labels, regulations, and yes, the food is probably safer. But there's something about that era, that blind faith, that simplicity, that people miss. What comes to mind when you think of the foods you ate in the 70s? Which ones do you miss? And which are you relieved are gone? Drop your memories in the comments. And if you made it this far without getting nostalgic or slightly horrified, hit subscribe for more trips down memory lane.